Hello, friends. The back to school jitters. As I'm recording this, it is approaching September of 2022. So we know what that means, right? The warm summer memories are kind of fading to these new routines and more planned events that are coming to the forefront. And it's pretty natural for most kids and parents and teachers to experience a heightened state of nervousness and anxious anticipation. After all, they have to contemplate the potential snags that could result from this less flexible schedule, peer group shifts, navigating a new environment, and the increasing demands of academic expectations. And that's already enough to make kids and adults a little bit more anxious, right? And a little bit more on point. But unfortunately, the past several years have added to these stressors. And I would even call them extreme stressors and challenges that have built up with the current events. So what I want to do in this video, and also will provide you with in the accompanying article that will be linked in the video description, is to review these extreme burdens of 2022 and the consequences of this unrelenting stress on our brain and our body. More importantly, once we have this knowledge, what we can do to effectively cope. And I want to start with providing my first naturopathic toolkit resource to you to help the kids and the parents and adults that love them and everybody that's impacted by this future generation to just kind of maintain a more calm sense of balance as we move into this next transition. So first, let's kind of get an understanding of what we're up against. So coming in from 2021, families were struggling with things such as absence and gaps in learning, reentry fears, lapses in social emotional skill strengthening, accumulating to new safety protocols, and pressure issues of the day. Now, especially last year, this resulted in a mental health crisis, right? Especially for the youth. And some of these things are still present in 2022, and even more difficulties have emerged. Now we're dealing with these lingering unknowns. We're addressing critical teacher shortages, the aftermath protocols of these new norms that came into effect in 2021, what all this means when we go back, the rising costs of not just back to school, but inflation in general, the financial strain of life, and other fears such as school safety protocols. Now, thankfully, one of the major trepidations of last year isn't going to continue, or at least not is expected to continue into this year. The White House announced that it is steadfast in making sure that the schools stay open and that they have the adequate safety procedures to do that. And this can definitely lighten people's moods in that aspect. But unfortunately, there's still a lot on parents' minds that they have to worry about. And the adjustments for the children are still intense. So the advice of typical back to school about planning ahead, checking in with the school's protocols, and keeping communication open with kids is still helpful, but I don't think it goes far enough. Now, there was a survey done by MSN with 1,000 parents, and they were looking for what parents are really worried about in the 2022 school year. So I gave you some examples of all of the different issues we're up against. What did parents say they were most worried about? The top concerns were actually school shootings, the world events, and then teacher staffing. And it was noted that 44% of parents either already purchased a bulletproof backpack or are considering purchasing one for their child. And fewer than 1 in 3 parents think that their child's school has adequate security. 17% of parents, only 17% could actually afford childcare if their kid was sick. So these are all these additional stressors. And I don't know about anybody here when they were younger, right? Growing up in the 80s and 90s or the 2000s, we didn't have this to deal with. Now, on top of this, parents have the growing awareness of the potential impact of social media, cyberbullying, loss of loved ones, heightened peer pressure, handling these hot button issues, right? Racism, stigma, health inequalities, social determinants of health. And then there's still the growing mental health crisis. So more kids are getting diagnosed with learning disabilities and behavioral problems on top of all of this. And it's no wonder, right? It appears to be too much for us to bear. Now, diving into that, what happens when we have chronic long-term stress? Well, it affects the physical, emotional, and mental health of the individual, especially for our little ones, right? Because their brains are still developing. They just don't have that experience in neurowiring to handle all of these big issues and how to process it. So being really present for our children is important. And this is why we have been in this mental health crisis that was officially brought to attention October 19th of 2021. The American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, and the Children's Hospital Association declared a national state of emergency of child and adolescent mental health. And they asked policymakers to join them. In the spring of 2022, the federal government did follow suit. They declared an official mental health crisis and came up with a national plan to increase access to mental health resources. That's where we're at right now. We know the impacts, right? This chronic neural wiring that occurs with stress of hitting and bombarding that part of the stressed out brain actually can cause long-term mental health issues. Okay, it's actually one of the predispositions. So is doing this enough? Is increasing access enough? Now, according to the American Psychological Association, approximately 20 million youth are diagnosed with a mental health disorder, and many more are at risk related to biology, genetics, environmental exposure, socioeconomics, and of course, all these current events, right? So they think there's a need for mental health professionals to provide the best available culturally appropriate care. And right now, the eligibility and access to this mental health care is lacking. So what do we do? All right, kind of have all this doom and gloom, but I think it's important to understand that this isn't just a typical what can we do to decrease stress for back to school 2022 natural health approach art video and article, right? This is pretty serious. And I want to provide you with resources to help cope in an integrative way, which brings us to what we can do. But before I do that, I just want you to realize one important thing, and I don't think this message is getting out there enough, so I'm going to say it. We need to support each other. Okay, because it's stated to experience growth and resiliency from trauma, people need social support and they need social interaction. Now, the exact opposite is happening. And I think this is why so many people are struggling even more than they need to, right? Because many of us are divided over political and healthcare beliefs. And our society seems to not have paused to stop and think, and it's understandable because we're in trauma, that our strong ideals and beliefs on how others should behave, they should be similar to ours, are negatively impacting our next generation and our own mental health. So we need to realize that by closing our minds and hearts to those who think differently, we are shutting our children off from others, decreasing their critical thinking skills, narrowing their social support systems, and eliminating potential new experiences. I don't think anyone wants that. So support, what do we do? So we need additional support, and obviously we need more resources to deal with all we're up against. So on the individual level, obviously we can't change the world and make people more tolerant. We can only take care of our own families and our own space and how we react to the world. And that can have a ripple effect. We can demonstrate to our children more tolerance to others, offer other people support, invite people into our circles that might not think different, that might think differently than us, doing it in a way that honors our own beliefs and our own safety concerns, and allow ourselves to also get supported. We, on a national and global level, I think we need to reassess how we're going about increasing access, because we just don't right now have enough mental health experts to go around. And we're also basing the access on a one size fits all every brain protocol. We're just using conventional care. And I think there's a desperate need for more integrative mental health care, right? If we're just doing psychology and not looking how the body affects the brain and how the brain affects the body, there's going to constantly be this interaction that we're not addressing, and symptoms are going to continue to happen. Now, naturopathic doctors and functional medicine providers have within their treatment plans this ability to support mood at the biochemical level using natural approaches, and also looking at the root cause of the issues from the physical, emotional, relational, spiritual, and emotional levels. So what this means is that we're not just addressing the symptoms of anxiety, but we're actually addressing, is there maybe some nutrient deficiencies that are occurring? Is there something going on where they have a genetic predisposition? Is there an issue with an environmental concern or a peer support issue? Is there a sense of purpose that a child or an adult can pull on during times of trying and hard times? So these are all important things, and I feel that it's imperative that nationally, we need to address the need for more integration. So on the individual level, it's maybe opening our minds, demonstrating tolerance, supporting our kids. On the national level, it's allowing us to get more integrative and get to these root causes of, we can't just address mental health with, even though it's very helpful and imperative, talking about the issues in psychology and medication, but also getting to some of these root issues with that for more efficacy, in my opinion. So what are the resources that we need? I'm going to get to that later on, and in another video, I'm going to discuss everything that spans from traditional mental health support to some more naturopathic and integrative support tools that you can use for you and your kid, or share them with, if you don't have kids, with family members that do, and just to educate yourself, because this is our future generation we're talking about. And also, I think it's important for your own mental health to use some of these tools and strategies, because even though we're kind of getting used to all this trauma, it's still impacting us and going on in the background, and our brain is still on alert mode, especially if you are watching the news too much, which I don't recommend. Our body's in a constant state of crisis, right? If we're constantly being shown all the horrors of the world. So it's really good to allow ourselves the capacity to tune that out and regroup and rejuvenate. So in the article link, there is a short 11-minute video, and I'll link again to that in the video description. And you can also find it in the article with more resources and references to what I discussed. And I go over different modalities that can really help break some of the negative repercussions at the level of stress on the brain, and help calm the brain and body, and be better able to have a clear head as we're approaching the school year, or even just approaching life in general right now. So I discuss essential oils, emotional freedom technique, mindfulness, and deep breathing. These are some of my favorites. So I hope that you check that out, because we are being bombarded by a number of stressors every day, and it is increasing. And parents have a lot more pressing concerns than they did back in the old days when I was younger. So we really need to wheel this in and pay attention and look at what we're up against. And it's maybe we can't turn a blind eye to it. I mean, the fact that a majority of parents are either have or are considering bulletproof backpacks to send their children to school. We need to deal with what's going on in kids' minds at the, as I said, before it becomes obvious, really addressing emotional well-being with the body, mind, spirit, and integrative health before it gets to that point. And I hope that we can do this and come together and support each other. So let me know what you think. Be sure to check out that 11-minute resources so that you have a tool straight away, and I'll be back with even more later on in an upcoming video. And I'd love to hear your comments. I would love to have you like this video and comment so that I can continue to do these and provide them to you for free on YouTube and wherever you're watching this video. Please also make sure to check out the resources that I make available both for free and that you can take as a course on mind, body, and essential oils support, as well as check out my website for some other offerings that I have as a naturopathic and functional medicine provider. I really thank you for listening and taking the time, and I hope you take gentle care, and I hope you can make this school year one with as much ease and smoothness as possible, considering the trying times. And if there's anything I can do to help support you, or you want more information on more support, please let me know in the comments, because I will definitely read that and respond personally. Have a wonderful rest of your day or evening or wherever you're watching this, and we'll talk again soon.